What's happening, everyone? My partner's Ian's keeping it real. What's happening, everyone? And welcome to our Chile Boxing Talk. I got George with Off the Ropes Boxing and MMA here, the heartbeat of the HCP Network, Noteball Bucksanos in the house, and our very special guest, the one and only Philly Drew Irish Evo from the Shoe Shine. You guys can catch him on Monday nights. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, of course, man. It's an honor to have you here as always, you know. Plus, we're talking Triple G, so I want to know what you have to say about that a little bit later. I want to welcome JC first in the house, as always. Nando Yamas in the house, and we got OJ22, man. Thanks for joining us, brother. I'm sure you're looking forward to our rescore, as you often do. We're glad you're here. And A-Rod, El Chido Boxing's in the house. So what's happening with you fellas? How you guys doing today?
Fabulous.
You know what they say, man. I'm living my best life.
And Drew, how you feeling, man? How's life?
Drew's took the words out of my mouth.
Well, there you go, dude. You've been making the rounds, you know, but we wanted your take here, you know, because we got a lot of things to discuss. And hey, it is Friday, and you know the new news cycle is already starting. But man, I want to get into Edgar Berlanga a little bit because you know I've been tracking this for a long time, for years actually. So you know I want to bitch and moan about Edgar, the chosen one, Berlanga. But before I do, Run PMC, the hired gun of HCP, is here. What's happening, Run? But yeah, man, I want to talk about Edgar Berlanga. And for those who don't know, you know, I've been saying we need to pump the brakes on this guy for years now. Okay, years. And just to update everybody on what happened, looks like Edgar Berlanga is going to get suspended for 6 months, which is kind of a slap in the wrist. That's really nothing for a young fighter. He's also going to get fined $10,000 for the bite that he took out of his opponent. So I want to know your guys' takes. Now, you know, before I get into it, like I'm just going to start ranting, and then you guys can tell me if you agree with me or what your thoughts are, because what I want to know right now is Edgar Berlanga a hype job? That's what I want to know. I think we have enough information to go off of. And like I said, I've been tracking this thing for a while. Now, back in the day, I told people, hey, let's slow it down. Okay, let's see what was going on here with Edgar, the chosen one. I'm choosing bums. Uberlanga. Let's take a look. All right, so this is when he started piping off, and I started getting a little upset when he was tweeting shit like, oh, well, you know, I would have stopped Callum Smith in 6 rounds, okay? So he's piping off, you know, he's feeding the beast, you know, he was feeding his own hype. Here's here's Noteball, right? And, you know, this is back in the day. Check out this timestamp we got here, January of 2021, you know, and he's sitting there saying they're all selling the same boat, selling wolf tickets with no funds in the account. I take Berlanga saying he can beat Callum Smith as seriously as I do Charlo, claiming he can KO Bivol and Beterbiev, and likewise with Plant saying he's the best middleweight. It's all far-fetched. Wow. It's funny how times have changed, you know, and the perspectives have changed. Okay. Now here's Edgar Berlanga piping up again, talking about how he's going to be ready for Canelo in 18 months. Now keep in mind, this was over 2 years ago. Okay. And almost 3 years ago, Rozier said he'll be ready for the championship level type of fights within 2 years. Okay. So now we're past these little marks that they've given us. Okay. And he's still fighting a bunch of nobody. So I want to know what you guys think. Is Edgar Berlanga officially a hype job? Nopal, let's start with you, homie.
There's no official, man. He's always been a hype job. And I was hoping that he could learn a little bit more, but you know, it's obvious now that he's not going to go anywhere, bro. And he's basically he's one of them studio boxers, bro, with this image that, you know, I guess the Puerto Ricans, they find it really cool. You know what I mean? He's got the little, what do they call it? Swag, like swag or whatever. I don't use those type of words because, you know, they're pretty cringe to me. But he's got the little persona that, you know, that like, I guess every Puerto Rican identifies with. You know what I mean? The little hat to the back and, you know, the gold chains and, you know, basically like a cool image. And, you know, that's what he sold to the public. But I think they're even realizing that, you know, their money is better put on Xander Zayas, you know, who is a little more humble. So, yes, he's a hype job, has always been a hype job. But I'm just, you know, one thing I do think that's cool is he's not on Twitter as much talking all that crap. You know, I'm better than this guy. I'll knock this dude out in 1 round. To be honest, I think Caleb Smith would have knocked his ass out in like 1 round or 2, bro. So it would have been the other way around, completely,
Oh yeah, Drew, what do you think, man? Have you seen enough, dude? Is this guy a hype job?
He sucks.
Oh, why do you say that, bro?
Seriously, this guy sucks. Like he can't. Like if you look at it, 16 first round knockouts, taxi drivers, C- below class fighters, and when he moves up in somewhat a competition in his 17th fight, okay, he knocked the guy down 4 times, but guy had a chin. He went for, can understand that, Steve Rose, slow start and everything. But tell you the truth, he can't knock nobody out higher than a C- level fighter, in my opinion. He really, if you look at Angulo has some weak ass legs that Benavidez was able to knock him out. And this dude couldn't even knock him down. Weak ass legs. And I tell you the truth, I had it a draw between these two. Like, Berlanga is not only a hype job, but he sucks.
Damn.
And whoever nicknamed him the chosen one needs to be slapped in the face or in the back of his head to how fucking stupid that he is.
The fresh haircut to the back of the head slap, Andrew.
I'll do it right now, but I don't know who did it.
Slap some of that. What is it, like rubbing alcohol? Or what
It's
do they
a
put on the
little aftershave.
There we
I guess
go.
so.
It's
No.
aftershave.
No, I do something better. I get some baby powder, put in my hand, and slap him in the face. Yeah, but no, Top Rank has a huge problem. Like I said on Monday, like I said yesterday on the roundtable, Top Rank has a huge problem. You invested so much money into this hype job, and like he shouldn't even be on the main event. He shouldn't even be on the semi-main event. He should be on the prelims. If you ask me, I even put him ahead of under Nico Ali's Wash. If you want to ask me too,
Shit.
and that dude sucks also.
Go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but this is pathetic. Like, he can't even box.
Dude, I wanted to rage too, man. I was like, I'm trying to be more objective. People come here to get the information, and we have people who call it down the line, like George here, but sometimes I just want to pop off. And like I said, I've been following this for a while, so I had to come in here and complain because, I've noticed the tonality is changing. You're right, Nopal. He's kind of become a little bit more humble, but 2 years ago, people, even like more than 18 months ago, people were too scared to sign the contract. Hey, man, it's not his fault that this guy's knocking dudes out because he's got hands of cement. Hey, he can box. It's not his fault that he's knocking people out in the first round. Okay, so we've been hearing it, and now there's this change, and we're supposed to have all this understanding. But, George, what do you think, man? Tell it like it is. Is he a hype job? How far do you see this guy getting?
Man, and you know me, you guys know me, Chicano. Like, I'm pretty respectful. Like, I respect everybody that steps in that ring. I try to give most fighters benefit of the doubt, but like, I'm gonna go a little different today, man. I'm gonna agree with Drew and everybody that's calling him a hype job. I believe this is a hype job. I mean, I know 16 first round knockouts, 3 fights ago on the undercard of Fury and Wilder. The guy had balls. He stood in there, and I think that's what it took. And when people saw that, all you had to do was just stand your ground, get past the first couple rounds. Like he turns normal. He turns to normal. He relied too much on his power. The real basic things, like he could have been using a jab. I didn't see no jab to set up those shots. And I think I'm sure I've seen it all over. I can't really pinpoint which channel or which person on Twitter said this, but they're like, is he gunshot? Like, after getting knocked down from that fight, 3 fights ago, is that the case where he's afraid to get hit? He's saying, "Oh, I'm just getting the rounds in." Man, that does not look like getting the rounds in. Like, getting the rounds in is like actually doing some work, jabbing, body work. He just was going through the motions. And I get it, 16 first round knockouts, you're expecting for him to be the next big thing. It's I guess you call it an accomplishment, 16 first round knockouts, but against really nobody. It is disappointing. And I know Cotto when they were asking him at the podium, the next Puerto Rican great. I know he didn't want to disrespect, but I can tell, and I think all of us know who the next Puerto Rican star that's going to be taking over for the Puerto Ricans, and go by the name of Xander Zayas. That guy right there checks all the boxes and crosses all the T's, dot the I's. Like that's real talent right there. Yeah, same thing with Angulo. He should have got that guy out of there. I don't know what the hell was going on. I'm gonna have to agree on this, man. This dude is definitely a hype job, and we'll see what happens next. Who knows? Maybe they put him down as a main card opener or a main event prelim. Who knows?
You know what? There is one good thing about Berlanga. His girl is so fine.
Oh yeah, she's got it going on. A lot of these Boricos got some pretty looking mamas. I think Danny Garcia's got a good looking mama. Like they like the same dimensions I do, I guess. You know what I mean?
I wanted to add something to it. I mean, if Berlanga would have gotten here around the Chavez Jr. era, man, fans were so casual back then. They would have ate this shit up, man. The type of shit Chavez Jr. got away with. Nobody was even questioning that shit. Berlanga would have fit in that era like hella good, but we're past that. We've seen the hype jobs already, so we're ready for that shit.
Dude, and keep in mind too, we're all of a similar age, so we actually remember that Chavez Jr. actually had a peak. He actually became a legitimate world champion, and I think that win over Andy Lee was pretty good. And he did almost beat Martinez. You know what I mean? But Berlanga, the dude's 25. Still acting like he's a prospect, can't even do a full 12 rounds. Now he doesn't even have enough power to make his opponent back up. He has to be the one on the back foot. Like you said, George, it's not looking good. He's taking shots, and the way he takes them, you can tell you don't like it. He's gun shy. And also the way he takes them, he's just like, it makes you appreciate somebody like Canelo, or, we've been talking about people who can roll shots. Like, man, there's really something to it. Like when this guy gets hit flush, his whole face just goes like, he takes it, man. And he's got a tank issue, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that's a big one. Yeah, you're right. The tank there for him.
And then Nando, A-Rod makes a really good point here. He says that Junior got the hype from his dad. It's like, I wonder how much Edgar Berlanga actually wants to be doing this. I look at what he's doing, and I'll tell you what, dude. Like, I feel like he's just kind of doing what his dad wants him to do. Like his dad's there. His dad's the one that got him off the basketball court into the boxing gym, and like I don't even really know if his heart's in it. You know what I'm saying? And I guess we'll find out. I mean, he's making good money, and I think he likes the lifestyle, and boxing provides that. But I mean, what are they going to do with him? I mean, he might be able to draw, but you could tell the crowd at the very end, this is two stinkers in a row, and it's like, I feel bad too, because I feel like he kind of hides behind Puerto Rican boxing. And you make a good point, George. Like, he's not the future of Puerto Rican boxing, and I feel like sometimes people are scared to go up Berlanga because Puerto Rican boxing used to be a pillarstone of the sport, and that we've been waiting for a prospect to kind of rise and kind of take that mantle, especially because a lot of time's gone by since there's been a great Puerto Rican boxer. I mean, Miguel Cotto is just now entering the Hall of Fame. It's been some years, and Puerto Rican boxing has got some great history. It's got some great rivalries. So I want them to come back too, but Edgar's not the one. And I'm not going to forget all the hype that happened, because hype jobs do happen, man. And, the older you get, you can kind of start tracking them in real time. Like, I can't even remember the last time, and I've been watching boxing for a while now. Like, I can't even remember the last time there was so much hype that didn't deliver. Like, at least as far as like I've been watching, does anybody else remember like so much hype not panning out? I can't.
Damn, that's tough. I'm trying to think right now.
Victor Ortiz, like he was like, he wasn't a hype job though. Like, he was doing good. The story went out on him, but he didn't have the kind of buzz that Berlanga has.
You could also put Andre Bordeaux in that category if you look at it.
That's true. Berto took forever to get going, and then when he did, it's like he really didn't do much. That's a fair point. I always thought he was a little, I guess, overrated, But I don't remember there being a whole lot of hype. But that would be the closest equivalent that I could think of. And then Nando here says that Gabe Flores Jr. and Berlanga are the two biggest disappointments in boxing right now. Well, there you go. I appreciate you guys indulging me, and George, I appreciate you piping off a little bit and getting into it. But now I want to get into this weekend, man. We got one hell of a big fight coming up. Beterbiev versus Joe Smith. And, well, Drew, you're here, man, and I've heard your prediction. And, well, I want you to tell the Al Chile crew and our loyal listening audience what you have to say, man, because I like your take and I want it on record, baby. Tell us about this fight.
You want it on record again, by the way, because
Oh,
it's on
yeah.
2 other shows already, and you want it on record on your show now.
That's right.
Because people want to hear my voice. I know people love my voice. People love me in general. So, all right. I said upset because I believe it's going to be a late round stoppage. But I think the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Joe Smith, is because Beterbiev never faced anybody that's going to go that's going to be in his face, toe to toe, every second of this fight. And Joe Smith could possibly get inside, which is probably not the best thing for Beterbiev because he wants to keep you at a mid-range length. If you look at it, so Joe Smith wants to keep it outside or inside. That's the best chance he has of winning this fight. And I really think that Beterbiev is up there in age. He's 37 years old. He's somewhat is a slow starter. That's where Smith's going to take his opportunity to go right away and go right after him. But I really think this goes to 11th round stoppage for Joe Smith Jr. I just don't think Beterbiev is going to be able to hold on this onslaught every second by a younger guy or at his age of 37. I know he's a good boxer and everything, but Joe Smith has fast hands. And the way this fight can go, it could be ugly. It could be real ugly fast. And somebody can get hurt any second of this fight. But I got Joe Smith by 11th round stoppage.
Very nice, man. And great considerations. You make a lot of good points. George, what do you think, man? Who do you have winning this fight? Break it down for us, man.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a tough one for me. I think the factor here for me, like Drew just mentioned, and I'm pretty sure most of us agree, is Beterbiev's age. He's a bit of a slow starter. Smith, I probably watched like the last 2 fights, just some quick highlights on YouTube, and he starts off pretty quick, and I think he's going to take advantage of that. But I think at any given moment, don't get me wrong, Smith does get hit a lot. Beterbiev is the more polished boxer of the two. He boxes really well. I think if Joe Smith can do something early, get Beterbiev's respects early, I'm going to go the other way around. I think that we could see possibly Beterbiev getting like a late round stoppage. But again, if Smith can get Beterbiev to respect him, keep him on the outside a little bit, I feel like Beterbiev will be able to pull this. He'll be able to pull this one off over Beterbiev, and it wouldn't be a real big upset. It'll just be like, holy shit, Joe Smith Jr. give him his respects if he does win this, and it's gonna be a good one, man. I think it's coming on at 1:00. I know last time I mentioned the Haney fight, I think I got that wrong, but I corrected myself. But I saw yesterday, it shows that it's gonna be like at 1 p.m. more or less. That's like an early something, or unless it's supposed to be the weigh-in today. I don't know. I might have gotten that wrong, but either way, good fight. There's gonna be bloody. I know that for sure. Smith bleeds, Beterbiev bleeds. And then also the undercard's gonna be pretty good too. The co-main event, I'm sure. We could talk about that one, or it's a good card. ESPN is going to put it on a good card, good fight. But I'm going with this one. Beterbiev late.
Excellent, man. You guys are right. This is going to be one hell of a fight. I am looking forward to it. Nopal, what do you think, man? The panel split so far. How do you see this fight ending up?
Well, as in his last fight, he Beterbiev he showed the ability to be able to end the fight, whenever he needs to. He is a slow starter, but I think he kind of he's looking for a way to get in, and he takes it kind of slow at the beginning. But so I think this is going to be a 7th or 8th round stoppage for Beterbiev, and I don't, as far as his age, I think he's well preserved. He probably fights like once every 10 months, so I'm not really falling for that right now. And you see these Eastern Europeans, they they're well preserved. A lot of them. Look at Triple G. What? He's still 40 years old, and he's still probably the second best fighter at that, or the best fighter at that division. I'll tell you what. If Triple G fought Charlo right now, I'd still probably I'd still favor Triple G. And in Beterbiev's case, he's a straight up tank, man. Like I said, he can end the fight whenever he wants. So, it's going to be a hard fight for Joe Smith, but I am rooting for Joe Smith, and I hope he can pull off a win.
All right. And then Team Batman Boxing is here. Nice to see you, brother. And he says Beterbiev will stop Smith, in my opinion. He's much more skilled and has a much better pedigree. Derevyanchenko will dominate start to finish. Well, I definitely agree with that first part. I think that he's more skilled, and I think he's very powerful. And Joe Smith has never felt punches like this. You all make a lot of great considerations, and I see a lot of that, whether you're picking Joe Smith or Beterbiev. But ultimately, I think that Beterbiev is going to win this fight by late KO. I do hope that Joe Smith wins as well. He seems like a really nice guy, a hard worker. And I like his trainers. Like, I don't know if they're like two brothers or whatever, like they seem like, big city, like, hey, we can handle this. They kind of remind me of like Norman Stone, like they got plans, and I'm sure they got a game plan, and I'm rooting for them. Nando here, he says that a lot of folks will be predicting the upset. And will that motivate Beterbiev? He's got Smith by a 10-round KO. Any other final thoughts on this fight before we move on to the next segment? No, Paul, what do you got to say, brother?
I got to say, man, if somebody wants to bet some money, go for it, bro, because you're going to make some cool money on the return. If you really are that confident that Smith is going to pull off the upset, man, go ahead and put some money down.
That's true. Look at the odds. Like, I want to give Drew full credit if he gets this pick right, because this is kind of a big upset pick. I mean, Beterbiev's a minus 900. Now, we've seen a string of really good fights, a string of them, and I'll tell you, like, these odds for a championship unification fight are pretty wider than we've seen for a lot of these. You know what I mean? So, hey, man, yeah, if you got a bookie, or, you can let me know, cash at me, and I'll be your bookie or something. You can put down like a little 10 spot, maybe a little 100 spot. You know what I'm saying? Drew, you going to put any cash on this?
I might hit you up later about that.
All right.
I mean, just for the bragging rights, bro, of saying that you're the upset specialist. You know what I'm saying?
You know what?
I have predicted upsets. And I don't even predict upsets. I put spoilers in, and they come true.
Hey, and you know what? I'll tell you this. Like, I still got some equity from all my great upset picks, and I didn't get too risky with, picking like Ugis or other fighters. I got so much equity. I thought about just, what the hell? I'm going to roll with my homie, Drew Evo, and pick Joe Smith, but I can't do it this time. But it's going to be one hell of a fight while it lasts. And while we were talking about, just tough guys like Beterbiev, let's talk about some other tough guys like Triple G and Derevyanchenko. We're going to do our rescore here. A controversial rescore. This fight happened a little while ago. Everybody thinks that it was a robbery in real time. So we're going to go back and revisit this one now, just to kind of set the stage for this. After Triple G had been hospitalized by Canelo, sent to the hospital and recovered, he had a tune-up fight with Steve Rolls, and then he goes into this Derevyanchenko fight. Okay, and Derevyanchenko came off a fresh loss to Danny Jacobs. Then he comes into this fight. So this is the second time for a crack at a middleweight trinket against big drama show Triple G. So we got this going, man. We're going to talk about this particular fight. And since Drew Evo is here, and we figured that he's kind of a Triple G representative, he helps keep us honest. Why don't you tell us how you saw this fight, man, and who'd you have winning?
I had it 116, 111 Derevyanchenko. I be honest with you, after the first round with the 10-8, it was a 10-8 round for Triple G. I had Derevyanchenko going on a tear. Outboxing him, terrific head movement. Even hurt him in a couple rounds with the body shots and everything. I had one swing round, which was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The seventh round was a swing round, which I gave it to Derevyanchenko. But I look at it like this. If you want to see somebody having a lot of success against Triple G and backing him up and everything, it's Derevyanchenko. This was actually, I don't know if you want to call it a fluke, but it was a 1-2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 1 a great boxing game plan for Derevyanchenko. Like he was nailing him to the body, the head movement. Triple G was missing a lot of shots, and it was due to Derevyanchenko's defense and head movement. And like that's to me what real boxing is. Like head movement, dodging and everything, not hugging somebody like Devin Haney did that Cambosis. I know I'm gonna get some heat, but who gives a shit? But really, I look at it like this. I really don't. I thought this was a robbery, complete robbery. I don't know how the judges got this wrong and everything, like 115 to 112. And then you had a 1-point win for Triple G. I don't know. I think this was a lot of BS. And I didn't like the officiating of the fight. I think Harvey Dock did somewhat of a bad job in this fight because he kept telling Derevyanchenko, keep him up, when they were clean body shots. And if you look at the one round where he was hurting, I think it was the 5th or the 6th, he had Triple G hurt. And, excuse me, and if Harvey Dock didn't get in the way, I think Triple G was getting ready to go down.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Drew. I'm a little bit surprised, man, but you have Derevyanchenko winning this fight, and you do classify this one as a robbery. Well, there you go, man. Drew calls it like he sees it. Nopal, what do you think about this fight, man? I know we spoke a little bit. How'd you have this fight, brother?
Man, I agree completely with what Drew just said right now. I didn't see a swing round, but from round 2 to round 11, I had Derevyanchenko picking up every single one of the rounds. He was backing Triple G up. He was angling off on his ass, getting there in the body, something that Triple G appears to have no type of defense for that kind of thing. And, we saw that he was even trying to, clinch a little bit, something that's, not typical Triple G, but, he had no response for that. So, and then as far as the scoring is concerned too, on round 5, you're lucky that, he's lucky that some of us don't score that a 10-8 round, because I don't know what the referee was doing. That looked like some straight up corruption right there, because he did look like he was going to go down if Derevyanchenko kept hitting him to the, body, and it was just enough time for Triple G to recover, and the round ended right away. So, yeah, I scored this 118, 110, for Derevyanchenko. And like I said, I only gave Triple G 2 rounds. Round 1, which was a knockdown, and then I thought he pulled off as I go back to my notes, I see that I have round 12 actually a swing. So, I think my scoring's off. It would be 118 to 111. Yeah, I think 118, 111 still. I think Derevyanchenko got completely robbed in this fight, but he didn't have the momentum to get the win. Career-wise, there's no way that they were gonna let Derevyanchenko have this one.
All right. Well, damn, Nopal has it for Derevyanchenko and classifies it as an absolute robbery. So this might go into the official Al Chile certified robbery category. Well, I'll tell you what I think about this fight. I actually had Triple G winning this fight. I watched it, and I've seen this fight a couple times, and I don't see what you guys are seeing, but I respect both of what you have to say. But when I watch this fight, I have Triple G barely edging this one out. I have it 114 to 113 for Triple G. And I'm just going to read off what I saw in some of these rounds so you guys know where I'm coming from. But for Triple G, I gave him rounds 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9. And then also, I had a lot of swing rounds. So I could see round 3 being a swing round, but I gave that to Chenko. Same with round 7. Round 8 was a swing, but I gave that to Triple G, as well as round 9. Same way, gave it to Triple G. And then round 10, but I gave that to Derevyanchenko. And so I think 1 and 2 are pretty clear. The knockdown in round 1, and then in round 2, I felt like Triple G was kind of outboxing Derevyanchenko, and he got lucky with that cut. Also, he started establishing a good rhythm, but I think Derevyanchenko did a pretty good job of establishing his physical strength advantage, and then started securing it in the 3rd round. So I thought the tide started turning, but I did think that the 3rd round was a little bit competitive, and then I think Derevyanchenko did a really good job of establishing real estate as far as like ring dominance. But then starting in round 4, I felt like both fighters were taking turns to mount their offense. So it started to become a thing where Derevyanchenko would do his thing. And I think he would be the guy to typically lead. He would start off first, get his offense in, right? And we all know that Triple G can box pretty well on the back foot. Triple G would allow that. And then after Derevyanchenko lost some steam, Triple G would mount forward. And then I think that Derevyanchenko would take breaks. And, I saw this a lot. I thought the 5th round, like y'all said, I think that ending really secured the round for Derevyanchenko. I think that for round 6, I thought that the power and the traps set by Triple G stole the round. So that's how I had it. And then round 7, I had it back to Derevyanchenko. But I said that, both fighters were having success mounting their own attacks. And then in round 8, I don't think either fighter sustained an attack worthy enough to kind of give it to one fighter or the other. And then I also wanted to highlight, too, around this time that I was really admiring Triple G's lead left hand. I mean, the guy has a stiff jab. He can also throw it multiple times from different angles, throw hooks, like an overhand hook. Like, he's good at kind of mixing it up and having it be like a stiff punch when Derevyanchenko comes in, and he can use it as he's going forward too. So Triple G still has that excellent jab, and I thought he was doing good work that necessarily wasn't being accounted for. I also think that perhaps people weren't used to seeing a Triple G like this. Everybody's used to seeing him be so dominant in general, or have close fights with Canelo. So they were expecting a Triple G to go in there and handle Derevyanchenko, and he didn't handle Derevyanchenko the way people were expecting. And I'm not saying that's what you guys saw, but I think that the initial outrage might have something to do with that. At least that's from my perspective. And then I thought that round 9 could have been Derevyanchenko's, but he didn't seal the round. It also kind of ended badly for him. And then round 11, it started going towards Derevyanchenko. So the last 3 rounds I have for Derevyanchenko, because Triple G was kind of choosing his spots a little bit more. And so I do think that this was a close fight. I think that the knockdown was the difference, but I have Triple G winning this fight 114 to 113, and I do not classify this one as a robbery. So, George, it looks like, it depends on you, brother, as to whether we're going to classify this one as a robbery or not, bro. And all we want you to do, brother, is speak your mind. Go ahead, man. Tell us about this fight.
Yeah. This is my second time watching it. The first time I watched it, I did not watch it the way I watched it the second time. I will say this. I think both guys did great work. They both answered each other back. When you see Derevyanchenko land some shots, Triple G answered back. Both showed great defense throughout the fight. And, one thing I do want to mention, even though, like, if you didn't see the fight and you looked at the very end of it, but, looking at both faces, you would have thought Triple G completely dominated this fight and beat the hell out of him. But that's not the case. It just shows Derevyanchenko's toughness. Triple G was landing the good jab. What I did like was the jab with the left hook immediately. I think that's kind of hard to do, especially in the motion he was throwing it at. Again, great fight, good defense from both guys. For me, I had 9 swing rounds, and that's because the way I looked at it, I looked at it from how they were both answering each other back. And then some swing rounds were determined on who won the last 30 seconds of the round. For me, at least, that's when I'm scoring it on my own. That's the way I kind of score or give the swing round to somebody, depending on how they close the round out. And you see that in history. You see Sugar Ray Leonard was very popular, very famous for doing that, where he didn't really do nothing the whole round. And then the last 30 seconds, flurries, closed the round out, won the round. And that was kind of close for me here. That's why I was able to have 9 swing rounds. But I'm with you on this, Chicano. I agree. I have the score 114, 113, with with round 1 being the factor, or the the difference in it was what got him that point. Otherwise, this to me would have been a draw, because again, both guys did good both work. They both did good work. They both showed great defense. They showed good offense. And Derevyanchenko, I think, like they say, some guys have like that one great performance. This was that one great performance. Whether if Triple G was sick, like they mentioned at the beginning of the telecast, that he had a flu, I think like a day or so before. But we're not used to seeing Triple G like this, you know, where he's getting answered back, at least, and from a fighter like a Derevyanchenko. But to me, 114, 113 for Triple G. The rounds I had Triple G winning were 1 through 3, but 2 and 3 were swing rounds, of course. So 1 through 3, 7, 8, and 10 were the rounds I thought Triple G won. And then as for Derevyanchenko, he went on to winning from 4 to 6. He won 9, 11, and 12. Close fight. I mean, I don't know. I could be being fair or whatever it is, but like this was a great fight. I don't see how this fight couldn't have been mentioned, you know, as maybe a candidate for like a fight of the year, because both guys are fucking each other up. But as far as a robbery, I'm not gonna go with the robbery. I'm not calling this a robbery because, again, yes, we're not used to seeing Triple G like this against this kind of opponent, but it wasn't like Triple G wasn't doing any kind of work whatsoever. So 114, 113, Triple G.
All right. Well, man, I thought I was going to be on an island by myself, but George backs me up with his point of view, man. So pretty contentious, you know, like very divided camp. We might have to get Run PMC or Sean Sean to take a look, you know what I mean, to see if he thinks one way or the other, man. But it was a good fight. You're right, George. Like really impressive back and forth type exchanges. You know what I'm saying? And we waited on this fight. Like we were going to save this one as we went up to like the Canelo versus Triple G rescores, but we have new information on Triple G. He did beat Murata. He's a unified middleweight champ, you know, so this one wasn't as vital to hold on to and watch, you know, so we're slowly concluding everything. But yeah, man, this was a great fight. And like you said, maybe Triple G did have a little something going into that fight. They did report it. It wouldn't surprise me, but I thought the performance was still admirable. And like I said, I think he did edge it out. If we have Derevyanchenko winning this fight, I wouldn't disagree with you at all. Like I had enough swing rounds going to where, yeah, you could easily have Derevyanchenko maybe winning this fight, but I didn't see this as a clear win for Derevyanchenko at all. So those are my final thoughts. Anybody have any final thoughts on this fight before we move on to our next little segment? I guess not. Well, that was fun to watch. And let's talk a little bit. We have we got to talk some shop here right now. So there's a couple things I want to get into. So we have a couple of controversial fight options. And now here's what I'm thinking. Okay. I want to end this on a high note. Okay. So I think that we should save Sergio Martinez versus Martin Murray for the end because, you know, I don't want to end it on like Malignaggi or Danny Garcia. That's what I'm saying. So, and I'm not even sure if we should do these two. I mean, I happen to remember, and if you guys were watching boxing like I was, you know, about 10 years ago, roughly, David Diaz versus Paulie Malignaggi, that was a controversial fight, and it led to a rematch. And I remember people raging about Danny Garcia versus Mauricio Herrera. Now, I didn't even watch that fight fully, but people were calling that one, total robbery. They started calling Danny's gift Garcia. So I want to know what you guys think. Should we even do these? And my proposal is that if we do these, I say we get them both out of the way, get them taken care of for next week. You know what I mean? And then we can just end with Sergio Martinez, a noble champion, a lineal noble champion versus Martin Murray. And before we go to our Canelo versus Triple G rescores, what do you guys think?
Are you saying we do both in 1 week? or one after the other? Yeah,
maybe do both in 1 week. I mean, unless you think they're important enough to kind of get their own little week, you know what I mean? I guess we could split it up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm cool with splitting it up. I think the way it's listed there, we'll start with, you know, the David and then go on to the Garcia, then finish off with Martinez.
All right.
Unless you guys think otherwise.
No, let's do it, you know, because Paulie Malignaggi, he's starting to pipe up a little bit. You know, I've heard him on his podcast, his YouTube channel, which I like. I actually really like his perspective in general. And he speaks Spanish, and he's got a little segment going with Juan Manuel Marquez, which I think is pretty damn cool, actually. But he's piping off, just talking like it was a robbery. And I'm like, that's not how I remember it. What I remember was that some judges had it really wide, and that was the controversy. Not necessarily that it was a robbery, just that, how could you have Diaz winning this many this many rounds? Like, that's what I remember. So we're going to take a look at David Diaz. Is that his name? No, it's Juan Diaz. Excuse me. Juan Diaz versus Paulie Malignaggi.
Oh, yeah, Baby Bull.
The Baby Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? For those who don't know who he is, and I feel bad for getting his name wrong. Like, if you weren't watching boxing back then, that's all right. But man, he was a pretty notable lightweight at the time. Like when we went back and we did that, we did that Santa Cruz versus what was that Cuban boxer that we did? Remember that rescore that we did? Armando Santa Cruz versus what the hell's that guy's name? Joel Casamayor,
Oh yeah.
and I was just referencing how like during that fight, because that was like a nothing fight at the time, like all they could talk about was Juan Diaz. You know what I'm saying? So he was pretty notable and fun to watch, and he had one hell of a good fight against Juan Manuel Marquez. And if you haven't seen that one, well, we'll probably get to that one because the next thing that we're going to discuss is what our next segment's going to be. We got a brand new segment coming up. I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. And we're looking forward to this one. We're going to be taking a look at fights of the year. And that's going to be our new segment. As we're wrapping up the controversial rescore segment, we're going to be taking a look at all of the fights of the year. And now I want to discuss with you guys like when we should start because I'm looking forward to this one. Should be fun, man. So I was taking a look and just keep in mind that, this list that I have, what I'm going to be doing for those that are going to be doing this along with us is every fight's going to be in alphabetical order as far as like who I list first. So, and I'm trying to forget who won some of these fights. Like as we start getting into like the 90s or whatever, like I'll start knowing like who won, or, if it's somebody like Ali, I'll know kind of roughly that he won, or if it's Marciano, like I'll know that he was undefeated. So I'll know who won, but these other ones are going to be in complete alphabetical order, So if I say, Dempsey versus Firpo, it's because Dempsey D goes before F, right?
Okay.
So that's how we're going to do it. I'm looking forward to it. And I want to know what you guys think about when we should start. Okay. Now we have a lot of respect for all the decades of boxing and when it started, but the early film's a little bit choppy. And this is based on the research that I did. We could start in 1923, and then it's just kind of spotty, right? With maybe a couple of full fights, but a lot of partials, right? But if we did this, we could see Dempsey, we could see Henry Armstrong, Joe Louis, right? To name a few. And then Jersey Joe Walcott versus Ezzard Charles, right? Which I've heard that fight referenced a lot by Dwyer. Shout out to Dwyer. So part of me thinks maybe we should watch that one. I don't know, right? But then when you start in 1952, right, pretty much every like 2 out of 3 are full fights. So that's when the quality of the video starts getting better, and there's a lot more full fights. So like I said, then we could get into like Rocky Marciano's, Ezzard Charles versus Marciano 2, Basilio. There's some just cool fights. And then we get into 1963, and then it's off to the races, and we pretty much have full film, good film from the 60s moving forward. And that starts us with Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay versus Doug Jones. You guys have any thoughts on when you'd like to start it?
I'm just excited. I think it's gonna be dope to go back to see a lot of these great fights because, I mean, just off memory, right? Like at least like the last 5 to 10 years, what fight of the year? Like, I mean, you can remember pretty much most of the fights that happened and how exciting they were. And I mean, we're just big fans of boxing, and to go back to go see these great fights back to the 20s. I mean, shit. Honestly, to me, I don't think there's really no bad way to start. How many fights do you have total, if you want me asking?
Oh, well, so from 1923 to 51, it's 1, 2, 3, only 8. So,
8.
I mean, it's really choppy, not much film out there. But then after that, there's at least a little bit of film for everything. And then, like I said, it's like out of every 3 fights, there's only one that has like partial film. So we could start in 52 and get a good rhythm going and see most of the fights in totality. Right. I mean, but we could go back and kind of just stack some of these. So, I mean, if we have partial for 3 fights, we could just stack them. Cause on my own, I'm going to take a look at Max Baer versus Joe Louis. I know I want to see that one.
Man, that's shit.
And it looks like that's in totality. So, I mean, if you want, we could start from 1923 and we could just start with the film that we have, you know what I mean? And then just move forward. You know what I'm saying? And then I can kind of maybe, do a little research ahead of time. And if I know that we only have 10 minutes of film on these, then we could just stack 3 of them. So we have 30 minutes of film to watch. Nopal, what are your thoughts on this, man? You just hanging out, chilling? What are you sipping on? What's going on with you?
No, I'm just trying to figure out. You're saying that the ones that you're saying it's film, it's not like the full fight, huh?
Right. It's all partials until we get to 52. And then most of the fights are available until 63. And then in 63, it's all good. And we can just watch full films pretty much.
And you said that the ones that there's just film, there's 8 of them?
Roughly, yeah, from 23 to 51. And then after that, it's most full films that we can take a look at.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited, man, to get this started. Maybe we could start it right after
With a bang.
whole Triple G thing. whether he wins or he loses, versus Canelo. Maybe that's when we.
Oh, I see. Oh, so you're saying started after we do Canelo versus Triple G 1 and 2?
No, I mean right after they fight. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well, no, I want to get this going now, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Now?
Like, yeah, why not, dude? Like, boxing's gonna get slow.
We still got 3 fights to score, bro. So that's at least 3 weeks from now, right?
That's true, but boxing's gonna be dead. Let's piece it in. I'm starting this thing up. No,
I mean, no, wait. We're still gonna score 3 fights. Plus, we still gotta rescore Triple G, Canelo 1 and 2. That's gonna be another additional. That's 5 weeks total from now.
I don't mind being archival, bro. Like some of these subjects, look at we were able to breeze through 3.
I mean,
4
what we
subjects.
could do is just throw these 3 fights away, man. The ones that we're gonna rescore and just go right into the segment, man. Right into fights of the year.
Nah. No, Paul.
See? Oh.
No, Paul. I would consider this a favor if we started up, man. What do you think? Come on, bro.
Okay, so what do you want to do? You want to because we still got to rescore about 5 or 6 fights left, like I said.
Just stack it up, baby. And a lot of these are partials anyway. So here's what we should do. And you guys are all you're getting to see like a meeting, in live time, and you see me putting pressure on Paul.
The film that we have, we can actually air it, huh? Live, because nobody really owns that footage anymore. Isn't it like once it's hella old, it's public domain, right? Like
that's a great question.
You might be able to air it live. You know what I'm saying?
All right. So let's do this. And since a lot of these early ones are partials, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna look at partials as we finish up the controversial rescores. And by the time we're done with that, we'll have full film to watch, so you only have to add like an extra 10, 15 minutes to your homework, no, Paul, to your tarea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, we can do that.
Excellent. Well, no, Paul just said yes, so I'm going to take that as a yes. He's the man. You know what I mean? He's my homie, and I appreciate that.
Heartbeat of HCP.
You're the heartbeat of HCP, man. You gotta go with it, bro. Okay, so we're gonna do this, man. We're gonna start off with Jack Dempsey versus Luis Firpo, 1923. And we're going to start making our way. So that and Juan Diaz versus Paulie Malignaggi, the controversial rescore. We hope you guys join us on this ride. We're looking forward to it, so we'll see how it goes. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch base with everybody about is this Hall of Fame class that we had. I'll tell you what, man, like it kind of went over my head that so many awesome Hall of Famers were going in this year. Honestly, like it had always been like a thing for me to possibly go to that Hall of Fame ceremony. And if I had known how many people were going in, especially Juan Manuel Marquez, I probably would have made it happen, to be honest with you. So what I'd like to do is give a shout out to some notable names. I don't mean to omit anybody, but these are just names that I feel like, hey, we all kind of grew up watching and maybe just have some considerations about. So if you want to give any final thoughts towards these people as they enter the Hall of Fame, right now would be a great time to do so. Let's start. And I'm sorry that Drew Evil had to leave us, but let's start with the great Bernard Hopkins. Bernard, the Executioner Hopkins, has entered the Hall of Fame. Any thoughts on this, man?
All right, I'll go. Man, hey, Bernard Hopkins. Again, I've been watching boxing a very long time. I feel like the introduction of Bernard Hopkins came honestly right about the time of Tito Trinidad. I feel like that's when he had the big notable, only because Trinidad was beating everybody. He was beating Fernando Vargas. He was beating Reed. He beat Joppy. And he was just on this tear. And I think going into this fight, for me, I think it was just, I'm like, man, let's see what Hopkins can do. Because I'm thinking like, well, okay, maybe Fernando Vargas could do it. No. Okay, maybe David Reed could do it. No. Then it's like, all right, Trinidad's beating everybody. And here you go. You enter Hopkins. In Puerto Rico, the flag throwing on the ground, doing what Hopkins does, coming out with his executioner mask, crazy guy. I just think for me, that was just one of those fights. I think that just put him on that map, that got the notoriety. And from there, he went all the way to, I think, like his early 40s. Crazy winning, beat Kelly Pavlik when he wasn't supposed to beat Kelly Pavlik. He lost to Jermaine Taylor the first time. I think he ended his defense streak. I think it was like 15 or 16. I know it was like a double digit for sure. I can't remember what number it was, but that was crazy. But Hopkins, man, I know he wasn't really fan friendly. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's boring." He was kind of boring, but it's just his style. He was a counter fighter, and he fought at his drum. He fought when he wanted to fight. It's cool to see him into the Hall of Fame, man. That's all I got to say about Hopkins.
Most definitely, and when I started getting back into boxing, it was just right around when he fought Trinidad, and well, actually, no, I saw that fight, and that was impressive. And then I got out of boxing again, and then when I got back in, like he was kind of like this old guy that was still maintaining. So I do remember him beating Kelly Pavlik. I remember him losing to Jermaine Taylor, and that's right when I got back in. So when he lost to Taylor twice, that's when I started watching boxing again. So I didn't have a chance to see Bernard Hopkins like superior middleweight run, but I have gone back and watched a lot of those. I kind of got too bored, so I didn't finish that completely. But I definitely appreciated his style, and his longevity is definitely admirable. His discipline is quite something too, man. So it was a pleasure to catch part of his career in real time. And it's also a pleasure to kind of go back and watch some of those fights. He ended up knocking out De La Hoya, ended up knocking out Trinidad, which were, yeah, those guys came up. But I mean, Bernard Hopkins showed everybody why there's weight classes. You know what I mean? Nopal, you got any thoughts on Hopkins, man?
Man, legendary career. I'm not sure if he had like an amateur career, but we know he was like boxing in prison. So he made it happen, he obviously learned on the job, and it's amazing what he was able to accomplish in his career. I know this is our boy Drew Evo's favorite fighters from his city, and and then got into the promoter thing with De La Hoya later, and then still managed to have some fights afterwards. He fought Kovalev, and he didn't get knocked out. Who was it that he got knocked out by though?
Joe Smith, who's fighting this weekend, brother.
Oh, that's right. Oh, he fell through the ring. But he was already like 50 years old, so none of that really matters. It's just, what he was able to accomplish, and it's just a great thing, Legendary fighter.
It is, and I got to go back and watch those Jermaine Taylor fights because, the commentary was pretty biased against Hopkins from what I've heard. And then people like Drew Evo say that, hey, man, those fights were actually closer than people want to talk about. So I'm going to go back and take a look. I don't think it'll be a controversial rescore, but I want to know if Hopkins still had it. I mean, he wasn't that old, even though at the time, they were acting like he was on the geriatric tour, even though it was like 38. We don't talk about fighters that are in their 40s like that, like Golovkin, so it's an interesting consideration. And then Nando here says, hey, man, can you imagine if Triple G would have fought his real contemporaries, Hopkins, Pavlik, Taylor, Winky? That hype would have been dead on arrival. Well, it's kind of hard to argue with that one. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I remember they were like talking about a fight with him and Triple G, right? And for some reason they couldn't figure out, the exact weight to do it at. And, Triple G and them, they didn't want to budge at all. I mean, come on, the dude's already like 45, 50 years old. You're not going to budge and let him get a little bit of weight on you? But, golden opportunity that he missed just because, they wanted to be divas over there.
Yeah. And another thing, too, is like I just want to say, like, I enjoyed that Calzaghe fight. Hopkins had like an all-star corner. He had like Azim Richardson, John David Jackson, and I want to say like Freddie Roach. It was like some ridiculous like trio in the corner. I couldn't believe it. If I'm remembering that correctly. But I did have Calzaghe winning that fight simply due to volume. It was a volume thing for me. But I mean, Hopkins was so damn crafty, and a little dirty if he needed to be. But, we all like him for it. It's like, oh, well, that's Hopkins. It's like for some reason he gets like a shine for what he did, because he's a KG veteran. You know what I mean?
He was just running his face right through fools, huh? And it's like, it's just crazy that somebody fights that way, and he makes it like uncomfortable for the other guy.
Yeah, that's what they call it. They call it you doing the veteran moves on the young fighters, right? And that's how he got away for so long.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty funny.
Oh yeah, and then Nando here says that Pavlik and Triple G were nearly born on the exact same day. Damn, well that's something to know about. I did not know that. All right, and Dinamita Juan Manuel Marquez has entered the Hall of Fame. Any thoughts on this great legendary Mexican fighter?
Let me start it off. I'm just gonna my usual spill. This is one of those fighters. He never had the opportunity to have any type of favors in any way, and he did what he could in like bad circumstances. He was never the A side versus anybody. He was taken advantage of by a lot of the other fighters, but he took all the hardest fights. And at the beginning, he had a different style of fighting, and the fans were very very bitter towards him, because they wanted the usual Mexican brawler. So he found himself, and he had to switch up his style a little bit just to be more favorable to the Mexican audience. And he managed to get a fight with Barrera, and then he always wanted a fight with Morales, never got that. And truly one of the greatest Mexican fighters ever. Lace him up right here. And you could see how, given the way his career went, how he always was the B-side. You can see how, he doesn't like Canelo at all. And, he's got a point. But at the same time, it all worked out for him. Imagine if they would have made him the A-side, he probably wouldn't have accomplished what he was able to accomplish, And, truly one of the best Mexican fighters of all time.
Yeah, I agree, man. One of the greatest Mexicans. I mean, top 10, top 5, or anywhere in between in the 10. I remember of course, the fight he had with Juan Diaz, definitely crazy. The Baby Bull, his 4 fights with Pacquiao. I think at the time people maybe would say, hey, you know what, Marquez won 2 of the 3, or it's split, or they think Marquez won most of the fights, especially that crazy first fight where he went down, I think, like 4 times in the first round, and then to go on to finish it. And I mean, I remember my uncles, my cousins, like, no, Marquez won that fight. Pacquiao didn't win it. He just won that 1 round. It was crazy pandemonium. But definitely Marquez was one of those guys. But as he retired, I don't think he wants to give Canelo his dues. But hey, you know what? That's for another time. But we're talking about what got him into the Hall of Fame. And I mean, great career, man. I mean, he should get the notoriety that he should be getting.
And you know what, George? I was going to say that would be a golden moment in boxing for, like, Canelo to just quit golf, right? And for him and Marquez to finally, like, give each other some credit. You know what I'm saying? I think it's more on Canelo's part. I don't think he's ever said anything negative about Marquez. I think it was like a beef where they were criticizing the WBC for giving Canelo a chance to get their belt without really even being in the lineup.
Yep.
And they were criticizing Canelo, and that just and then Canelo calls him out and says, "Let's fight then." And which was ridiculous if you really think about it, because Canelo was already a 154 pounder, and Marquez was never really even a true welterweight. You know what I mean? When he stepped up to the scales he was fully rehydrated, and he would weigh like 142, so that was really ridiculous for Canelo to even suggest a fight with him to begin with. But nevertheless, it was a machismo thing. And, any Mexican knows that if you challenge another Mexican, he's got to say yes. And, of course, this put like a strain on Marquez ever to like Canelo, but it would be a golden moment for him to sit back and actually give Canelo some credit for something. Like I said, if Canelo if he quits golf, though, because I don't know, man, it's not looking good, bro.
Yeah, and it's like Nando here says, Marquez, a salty bastard. He's got some strong opinions, but he's definitely one of my all-time favorites. And we're getting a lot of comments here in the chat. Chido says that Marquez lost that first fight to Pacquiao. And then JC here has a strong opinion that El Terrible over Marquez, though, over everyone. And wow, this is going. Here we go, talking about the draws. All I have to say about Juan Manuel Marquez, man, is that he definitely is an all-time great style. Awesome counter puncher, very intelligent, took a lot of risks, was chingon, wasn't scared to go out on his shield. I always used to have a great anxiety when he would fight, because I wouldn't classify him as chinny, but sometimes he would just get knocked on his ass, kind of like, I don't know if it was like off balance, because he's a very balanced fighter, but just he would get hit perfectly and he would just kind of go down and spring right back up, so he wasn't chinny necessarily, but man, I'd always be nervous about him, getting knocked down, especially against Pacquiao. When they would fight, I'd always think to myself, like, oh, if he could only stay on his feet, right? And then he stayed on his feet in the third fight, got robbed, and that was a certified Al Chile robbery. That fourth fight was something else, even though I didn't have a chance to see it live because I was preoccupied with something, and I regret not seeing that in real time. But I did see Marquez versus Pacquiao 2 myself. I went to the Mandalay Bay and saw it with my dad. Excellent fight. I've never felt so much awesome raw energy. I mean, those are like fights back in the day where you could really see and feel those crowds, man. They're hot crowds, and Marquez had an army there, and Pacquiao did too, but I would say it was like maybe like 75% Mexican in there. And, the Filipinos, they were respectful in the crowd. I don't think they wanted any problems. You know what I mean? But Marquez should also get credit for going up 2 weight classes to fight Mayweather. Now, sometimes we give a fighter credit for quote unquote going up 2 weight classes, but sometimes they've already visited that next weight class, right? They went, like, for example, like, if they go from like 140 to 154, they've already kind of visited 147 really quickly, and then they jump from 140 to 154, right? But Marquez truly made a 2 weight class jump from 135 to 147. And if anybody did that these days, like just like that, I mean, it'd be quite something. We saw what Mikey Garcia did against Spence. Like, it never seems to work out too well, but he took the challenge, man. And he's had some excellent fights. His fights with Diaz, even his Katsidas fight, he retired with the win. What was that gentleman's name? He's the guy who fought Rios, Alvarado. That was a good fight too. Very skilled. He tried to fight Cotto, but they couldn't come to terms, and then he subsequently retired. Then they almost got together while on the retirement tour to fight again. Like, I think this guy's hungry, man, and I think that he thinks, he's chingon, and he is. Very respectable career. And I want to give a shout out to Sugar Shane Mosley, who's entered the Hall of Fame. What do you have to say about this dude, George? Or Nopal? What do you think, Nopal?
Awesome career. I mean, he was able to get 2 wins over the legendary Oscar De La Hoya, which I'm wondering how come they didn't induct him yet. Maybe he's already in there, huh? Because he retired before these guys.
Yeah, I think he went in the same year as Trinidad. So, and Mosley fought a lot longer.
Oh, yeah. This guy ended up even fighting with Canelo. So, this is just a legendary fighter. He had great wins, and he was one of the guys that was able to land a good ass punch over Floyd Mayweather. Just an awesome career, and he had pretty good longevity too. We know that most of his career was around the LA area. That's where he earned his bones, and he was able to really, kind of like a Mexican style fighter, and he was able to get that win over Margarito. He basically beat the hell out of Margarito.
Yeah, man, he sure did. I went to that fight live. I went there for Margarito because he had just beaten Cotto, and I was high on the Margarito train. But I was happy for Mosley when he won, and the crowd had a little bit of a pop. It was you wouldn't know that he had a crowd, but as soon as the upset happened, man, there was like a strong minority just cheering for him, man. It was a great win for him, and like you said, dude, he's got that great. He knows how to fight Mexican style, right, or against Mexican style. He always had like this weird rhythm, kind of like a herky-jerky, like very offsetting rhythm. It's hard for me to kind of like get into like what he's doing sometimes because his style is just so different, and I did enjoy his fights against De La Hoya. Now, I didn't see those in real time. I was out of boxing at the time, but I think he legitimately beat De La Hoya that first time. And the second time, I could see people giving De La Hoya that fight, but I think the real fight was the first one. That's when they were both hungry and just really giving it to each other, and also those guys were friends, so like as we get into this era where we have like the Haneys and those, Tank and Shakur all of a sudden becoming best friends. Like, I don't want to hear that these guys can't fight each other because I've never seen these dudes hanging out. Shane Mosley and Oscar De La Hoya were friends. They knew each other. They came up in the system together, and they still put it on each other. Except for that second fight, I think they touched it up a little bit too much. Touch gloves. Not a very entertaining fight, in my opinion. But I do respect Sugar Shane Mosley. He fought almost everybody. And he really did try to win against Canelo. And that fight's pretty entertaining. Like, if you want to see a young Canelo against a game Mosley, who like the year before had fought Pacquiao, and right before that had fought Mayweather, like he wasn't completely shot or anything, and I think it was a good fight, and Canelo said he learned a lot. And Naseem Richardson's really trying to get Mosley to win that fight. Like, they had a game plan. They weren't able to pull it off, but it was a damn good fight. Up next, we got Miguel Angel Cotto. He's been admitted into the Hall of Fame. Nopal, what do you think about this, man? All right, looks like George is just coming back. Well, I'll start, man. I enjoyed seeing Miguel Cotto's. George, are you back with us, brother?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, man. So, hey, dude,
cool.
We're just talking about Miguel Cotto, bro. What are your thoughts?
Man, Miguel. Sorry.
Something's-
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, Miguel Cotto, my all-time favorite fighter, man. That's one guy I wish I could have met. He was actually here in Tucson. Remember with the fight with the Oscar Valdez. He had his fighter Acosta on there, and a lot of my buddies know, from the barbershop knew I was like a big Cotto fan, and they were sending me pictures when they met him, and I'm like, you sons of bitches.
Oh man.
Yeah, it would have been cool. And I was trying to get that day off too. I was actually told to come in for overtime. I would have been able to make it if I had the time, but I guess I just didn't make it. But Miguel Cotto, like they said, man, pretty much fought everybody and anybody. I know at the end of his career, I know some people thought a little differently. I heard some people calling him like a diva or whatever. But for me, he fought at 154 in the division he shouldn't have fought. Yes, he fought a Sergio Martinez with 2 bad knees. He beat Dalvin Rodriguez. He beat who else? He beat Yuri Foreman, but he also lost to Austin Trout. I thought he lost to Joshua Clottey. Those were like those career fights where you would say people got gifts, but then again, if you look through boxing, who didn't get a gift? It was unfortunate how his career did go with Margarito. I feel like the proof is there. I feel like, yeah, he did have the plaster of Paris in his gloves. And that pretty much, was kind of like the end of his career, even though very young. He had his chances. He had a chance to fight Mayweather. I've always said that before the Margarito fight, like I was invested my time, like as a fan for Miguel Cotto at that time. I was watching him beat Zab Judah, Sugar Shane Mosley. So I'm like, man, this is the guy. And at the time, of course, Mayweather, going through the rankings too, beating Corley, beating Arturo Gatti. Eventually, there was going to be a setup for them to fight each other. But what ended up happening is Mayweather fought Miguel Cotto's sparring partner, Henry Brussels. And then the very next year, that's when you got Cotto fighting Margarito. And the rest was history. But I've always believed, and I've always said that Miguel Cotto was the one that would have been able to beat Mayweather, because 2 things: he jab, body work, and he's a natural lefty. And I feel like a left-hander with someone with power like that and that can throw a left hand, I have always believed was kind of the kryptonite to that Philly shell. And Miguel Cotto was a crazy body puncher. And you saw it later on in his career when he was the very best Cotto, like he busted up Mayweather. Now imagine the prime Cotto. So, again, Cotto, great career. It's cool to see that he got into the Hall of Fame. And what a great class to get in there with some of these guys, Mosley, Bernard Hopkins, and then of course Andre Ward.
100%, man. Excellent resume. He fought everybody, dude. He came around at the right time. And dude, I remember there was a time where, people thought that Mayweather didn't want any smoke with Cotto, and Cotto was just hot, up and coming, strong. He would go forward. And he could fight very well on the back foot, very versatile, smart, good hook. I mean, God. And you know what? He took a catch weight at 147 pounds against Pacquiao. I really respected him for that. I felt bad that he had to do it. I remember at the time, it just seemed like Arum was like, it's at 145 and that's that, and I remember thinking, damn, but he did that, he had a second era of his career when he beat Martinez, but he did a lot of good work at the lower weight classes too. So you did a really good job, George. So, all I want to add to that is just that, man, it was a pleasure watching most of his career. Nopal, you got any thoughts on Cotto?
Yeah, I mean, he gave us a lot of legendary moments, and like you said, he had a resurgence in his career. That's when people call him a diva. But given how his fights with Margarito and not knowing what led to the true, I mean, nobody's ever gonna know. A lot of people believe that it was just wet wraps. Other people believe that it was whatever plaster in there. But just the way that he lost to Margarito, it's just it was kind of hard to believe, given that he had already beaten Zab Judah, a fighter like Mosley, for those that believe in the triangle theories, just shows that it don't work that way, you know. Shane Mosley loses to Cotto, but then Cotto loses to, you know, Margarito, and you know, just other fights too, like the Mayweather versus, you know, Cotto. That was just a legendary fight, you know, just the rhythm that Cotto showed in that fight, and you know, he was able to establish his jab and, you know, hit Mayweather more than any other fighter. You know, most people score that fight like an 8-4 fight, which, you know, it was very good, and he gave us some great moments, you know, in boxing. Great Puerto Rican fighter, you know, legendary.
Definitely legendary. All right, and next up we got Vladimir Klitschko has entered the Hall of Fame. I'm telling you, man, this I should have gone to this. If I had known, like, I'd have made it happen, man. Although he didn't show up, but hey, he's in. George, what are your thoughts on Vladimir Klitschko?
I mean, I guess he was just that good and dominating that he just made some of those other pretty good heavyweights just look like a boring fight. He just was dominating heavyweight. He kind of changed the game a little bit for heavyweights. He didn't see, you know, the traditional, you know, let's stand in the center of the ring, no defense, slug it out heavyweights from the 80s to the early mid 90s. But Klitschko came in, he kind of changed the game, and he had to change his game because you saw, right, he was chinny, and that's the thing I think everybody remembers Klitschko for. At least that's what I remember Klitschko for, is being chinny. At any given moment, someone can, you know, a gust of wind could graze across his chin, and he's out. He had a couple of those losses, but Manuel Stewart saw something special in him. You know, R.I.P. Manuel Stewart, great trainer, but he saw something special in Klitschko, and I think a lot of us saw the same thing. There was some special traits in Klitschko, but his downfall, of course, was his chin. But he was able to last this long. You know, dominant jab, you know, straight shots, some of the best 1-2s out there. But you know, he beat everybody. He beat the guys he was supposed to beat at the time. You know, he lost to AJ. He lost to Fury. It was kind of, you know, like we like to say here, passing of the torch to the next heavyweights. But I feel like he had a great career, man. I think, a little side note, I feel like Vitaly, like if Vitaly would have, you know, showed this much dedication as Vladimir, I think we'd actually see Vitaly doing the same thing, but I think a little more dominating. But all in all, man, you know, congrats to Vlad.
Definitely, man. And the only thing I want to add to that is he kept the heavyweight division honest for a long time, man. Nopal, what do you think, brother?
Yeah, you know, I know a lot of people are bitter with his fighting style that he had. You know what I mean? As soon as they get up to him, he just grab them and, you know, just keep that jab going for the rest of the fight, you know. But he was able to change his whole style after getting knocked out, you know what I mean? So, you know, he made the necessary adjustments. And I think that in his Hall of Fame speech, he made reference to him being kind of like Mayweather in that way that, you know, they always protected themselves at all times, you know. And great career, you know, he was able to dominate the heavyweight division, you know, and also he's a fighter that, you know, had that longevity, you know. Not all fighters fight till they're like 40, you know, and he was still able to fight Fury and, you know, and AJ, you know. Of course he lost to them. I think that the Fury fight was a little closer, you know. Of course I think he got what happened. He got knocked out versus AJ, right? He got knocked out,
Right.
and, you know, but
Yeah, that
just
was
that
a crazy
longevity.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just the longevity that he brought to the table, you know, something out of this world.
You know, and
Go
I
ahead,
think that
George.
Fury fight was a little bit closer too, to be honest, than people seem to remember. That's just my opinion, you know. And the other thing too is, like, he wasn't no punk, man. I remember, like, when Fury was popping off. Like, if you guys like him on the mic now, he was still good back then. And they were talking back and forth at a press conference before their fight. And you know, Fury was going, "Well, this guy's old, and he's like, "Well, look at me and look at you," you know. And Fury was starting to go bald, and he looked kind of haggard and had a raspy voice. He's like, "Who looks better, you or me? Like, I'm in better shape." And then he called Fury a clown, and Fury was like, "Call me a clown one more time and see what happens." And Klitschko was like, "Clown," you know. And then Fury didn't do nothing, you know what I mean? So it was cool to watch that exchange.
Chicano, is that when he dressed up like Batman? And
No, this was another time. I think Batman was for the rematch that never happened. And that's the thing, man. Klitschko at the end, man, he still wanted the biggest challenges. He was interested in rematches and where he lost. Hungry fighter. Definitely
And
hungry
you know
fighter.
what, though? I want to add, man, it's crazy to think that he had all them damn belts, just needed to fight Deontay Wilder, and I don't even think they made an attempt. That
But
would
you
have
know
been
what,
such
dude? Based on like how I remember it, like Wilder wasn't in any rush to get in the ring with Klitschko. That's how I remember it. You know, we can go look at the time frames, but it wasn't like he
It's
was
just
ducking
crazy though,
Wilder.
man. Like nobody even thought about making that fight or what. Like there was the fans, they weren't like, hey man, go get that last belt. Of course the WBC wasn't gonna allow it, right? Because they were still trying to build up Wilder, but it's just crazy. I mean, you got all these damn belts. You're not gonna go try to get the last one, at least make some buzz, say, hey, I'm calling, Wilder out or whatever, you know?
We'll have to go back and take a look. I want to give a shout out to Sonteo Media. What's happening, brother? Well, hey, man, salute to Vladimir Klitschko. And up next, we got Andre Ward from the Bay Area. Man, this is a stacked list, huh? Dude, what are your thoughts on Andre Ward entering the Hall of Fame, George?
Yeah, great class for these Hall of Famers, man. Shit. You know what? For me, when I think of Andre Ward, I think of him retiring just a little too early. There were still names out there that a lot of us felt, one of those names or two of those names, Triple G, possibly a Canelo, or that was later on. But I mean, I think he had a great career. When you look back at the Super Six, he was not the favorite to win that Super Six. You had killers in there like Arthur Abraham. You had Carl Froch. I think Jermaine Taylor was in there. Mikhail Kessler, and I'm sure I'm missing one more name, but on himself. And he was not the favorite to win it. And when I was watching it, I thought Arthur Abraham was going to be the one to take it all the way, but it ended up being Andre Ward and Carl Froch at the very end. Completely dominated these guys. His style may not have been pretty, but at the end of it, he won the fight. He won the fight no matter how you look at it. He was a good inside fighter. I think, thinking of AJ and whose trainers you should have gone with, I felt like Virgil Hunter was the trainer I feel that would have been perfect for AJ, especially for like that inside fighter or, kind of bring that toughness out of him. And not saying that Robert Garcia can't, but I just feel like that would have been a good pair, AJ and Virgil Hunter. But Andre Ward, good career. I was a fan of him. I remember playing Fight Night. He wasn't on that game. I would make Andre Ward. I would make Tim Bradley. But he was a good fighter, man. I just feel like his career, it was a little too soon. He should have stuck around a little bit. But hey, if you know your body, you want the longevity. You kind of look at the guys that came before you, and you kind of see how they ended up 10 years later. You want to leave with all your faculties, and that's what we see here. He's a good commentator. Sometimes it could be biased, but I feel like he's pretty fair. Good career for Andre Ward.
Oh yeah, and Nopal dipped out. And if you guys don't know, for some reason, like Nopal and Andre Ward have like this little bickering feud on Twitter.
I see it.
Yeah, like Ward will go out of his way to respond to Nopal at times. It's the most hilarious thing, and Drew was getting all salty about it. He's like, "What? I'm a fan," and you're sitting there responding to Nopal. Nopal, we were just talking about your relationship with Andre Ward on Twitter, bro. Why don't you talk about that just for a second until you honor him for entering the Hall of Fame?
It's just like sometimes it's easy to compare his career with Canelo's, and he seems to. I think he just like I put out a response on something to somebody, and that thing went viral, and Andre Ward ended up responding to it a couple of those comments. But I think there's some things that he's got kind of like a Marquez thing where maybe he wishes his career would have ended up a little more like Canelo. And so maybe I don't think he made the amount of money that, that he was happy with. He wishes he would have made more. We know that he had said that he wanted to fight AJ out at some point. That would have been his golden moment of his career, We know that Kovalev fight turned out really good for him, but I think that maybe he just wishes that he was a little more famous, made a little bit more money, and that's what it seems. But, nevertheless, whatever it is, Andre Ward is a straight-up legend, man. The things he was able to accomplish, the way he won his fights. He's undefeated. I mean, how many fighters could say that they're undefeated? And, yeah, man. It's kind of funny, huh, the little Twitter thing. You know, I
Dude,
haven't
yeah, man. Like he knows who you are. I think it's hilarious.
I haven't really said anything to him lately. I try to get an autograph out of a book, and I don't know, man. It's weird how.
Hey, just send us
how-
congratulations, bro. You have to send us congratulations. Hey,
yeah,
the funny thing is, you got his attention. You got his
yeah,
attention.
that's crazy how you got to say something negative to get their attention, but you can't be like, "Hey, look, I bought your book, and I would appreciate it if you could autograph
Yeah,
it for me." I can't get a response on that, but if I say, "Hey, Canelo accomplished more than you," oh my God, here you go right away. Crazy, bro.
Yeah, and he doesn't block no Paul, so I respect him for that. And you know what?
Hey,
I'll tell you this, dude. I'm a fan of his. I'm from the Bay Area myself. Speaking of the Super Six, I saw Andre Ward versus Mikkel Kessler. Great fight, great crowd. Man, everybody was dressed to the nines. Very diverse crowd. It looked like an episode of Soul Train. Man, I saw like full red suits. I saw all kinds of women looking good too. Like I saw all kinds of shit. Great crowd. Eager to get behind their hometown hero, legitimate gold medalist. Very good fighter. And like you said, George, he had like this really interesting inside style. Like it was like a clinch. I'm not clinching you. I'm hating you kind of like hybrid style. Very unique. Kind of a lost art. I don't really see anybody do it the way he does it.
yeah, it was kind of deceiving. Like the way he would fight on the inside was a little deceiving. Like you think you're reaching for you, and all of a sudden you're hit with a straight right hand.
Right. I mean, and he could get a little crafty, let's put it that way, if he needed to be polite. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So Underwood, he would do what he needed to do to win, but most of the time he won very clearly. When we rescored Ward versus Kovalev, we classified that one as not a robbery. And that's how I saw it. Not that anybody else needs to see it that way, but I mean, had a very clean, good career. Roy Jones is also in the Hall of Fame this year. What are your thoughts, George?
Roy Jones. I got to meet him a couple years ago. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm chewing some chocolate, but a couple years ago on Instagram, he has his own promotion shit. I entered, not even thinking anything of it. They were giving tickets away. I got an email, probably about like an hour later, from his manager congratulating me. I won 2 free tickets to see. I don't even remember who the main event was. But I was just excited that I won tickets. I took my dad with me. There was no second guessing of who I was going to take, knowing that my dad had his cancer. And I'm like, you know what? I got to try to get, I mean, rather if I thought he had time or not, I was just like, I just got to get these moments. These are great memories for me and my dad. We drove to San Diego to go see his fight. It was like in the mountains somewhere. I think it was, I can't remember the name of the hotel, but I won those tickets. Me and my dad got to meet Roy Jones. We were like second row from the ring. And I've always had this thing, and I still have it to this day. Maybe I shouldn't do it, like, and not getting autographs or taking pictures with these guys. I want to try to treat these guys like regular people, because at the end of the day, besides you strip their fame and their belts and their money and everything, they're just like me and you and us. They're regular people. And I just treated it like that. I just, told him thank you. He shook my hand. If we enjoyed the fights, we enjoyed it, and we went on our way. But that was that moment. I wish I could have taken a picture with me, my dad, and Roy Jones, because I have a picture with me and my dad and Sugar Ray Leonard. Yeah, it was Alpine. You're right, Sonteo. It was at Viejas. I remember that. And then Maurice Hooker was there in the crowd. Miguel, I thought Miguel Cotto was going to be there because there was also a Miguel Cotto promotion. But his best friend, the dude that he, has slumber parties with, and he sleeps in the same bed with the dude. I don't remember his name,
That
but
Gabby or something like
yeah,
that.
Yeah, JC was talking about him earlier in the chat.
exactly. He was there too, and I shook his hand. And again, I don't know what it is with me. Like, I don't get these guys' autographs and pictures, which I should have. But Roy Jones' career, crazy, man, a crazy good career. I remember, watching his fights young. Like me and my dad were like sold, and we're like, man, nobody's gonna beat Roy Jones ever.
Yeah,
He goes to
crazy.
heavyweight. He beats Ruiz, comes down, fights Tarver, has a tough time in the first fight. It rematch, the famous "Any Excuses Today," Roy, and the rest was history. And then from there, he was just knockout, loss. And then not too long ago, I watched the Trinidad versus Roy Jones. I would say go back and watch it, man. That was a really dominating performance, even though Trinidad maybe was at the end of his career, but just to watch Roy Jones to kind of flash what he was really good at, his footwork, flashy jab, right hand, doing the Roy Jones thing. He deserves it, man. I feel like he was one of those guys that, when you think of style of fights, I feel like to me, he was like number one with that style of fight, hands down, style, fast, knockout artist. Roy Jones is one of those favorite guys for me.
Nopal.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was so athletic, man. He had those legendary fights with Tarver. I mean, he did so much. When he started at middleweight and took it all the way up to heavyweight. I mean, and he's got a win over the legendary James Toney. Who else could brag about that? Such a great career.
Definitely a great career, and the only thing I want to add to that is he had a lot of swagger. I think he was very good for boxing. Like when I got back into boxing, it was just when he fought Trinidad. So I didn't even really have a chance to fully watch his career. I went back and I watched that James Toney fight. I've seen other fights of his, like you said, Nopal, very athletic, great skill. But, the other thing too is like, I appreciate his love of the sweet science. Like I really enjoy hearing his commentary. And even times when like he would give commentary to like George Foreman fights or other stuff, like he would really have a soft spot for other fighters in their situations. One of the things I like to point out is like when he fought Ruiz during their press conference, like Norman Stone, Ruiz's trainer, like got in a fight, an altercation with Roy Jones's trainer, right? And there ended up being a scuffle. On top of that, Norman Stone made a fool of himself, right? So then fast forward to when he's commentating another Ruiz fight. So Roy Jones is now commentating on a Ruiz fight. And then Norman Stone gets himself kicked out, and then Roy Jones is like, and you got to love Norman, right? And then Lampley says something like, yeah, nobody protects our fighters the way Norman Stone does. And Roy Jones says something like, yep, and you can't get mad at him for that, right? So even though he's had to deal with Norman Stone himself, man, he has an appreciation for the fact of how loyal a trainer is towards his fighter, man. So I love the way he thinks about things, the way he comments on a fight. Like I wish that Ward and Bradley would take some notes and not just dictate what a fighter isn't doing and needs to be doing. The way Jones did it and does it, he doesn't commentate so much anymore, but I really enjoyed him when he would join that HBO crew. So a great representation of the sport, in my opinion. Up next, we just mentioned him, James Toney entered the Hall of Fame. Any thoughts on this particular guy, George?
I remember more of towards the end of his career when he wasn't supposed to be fighting at heavyweight. But just offhand, just some of the highlights. We watched a fight. We scored a fight, which I think we all picked right that he lost.
Not me, but it was classified as a robbery.
Yeah,
I got outvoted.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my notes. I'm sure I did pick the other guy closely, but James Toney had a great career too. I met him here. Same thing, Tucson. I met him with Jesse Vargas. It was I think it was the first ESPN event at one of the casinos here, and he was in the crowd. Nobody even knew who he was. He was just walking around. I walked up to him again. I'm a guy, a prideful guy, whatever you want to call it. No autographs, no pictures. Just walked up to him, shook his hand. Yeah, saw him selling some merch, told him I'd come back around and get a shirt, and I didn't see him. But, James Toney had a great career. I think now that I get older, I feel like I appreciate boxing more. I think I might just do myself a favor and do myself a solid and probably maybe watch a couple James Toney fights, some highlights from back in the day, when he was completely dominating those divisions, man. But Roy Jones, a good career for James Toney.
Oh, yeah. Nopal, what do you think, man? Were you able to watch this guy in his prime, or like when did you catch him? What are your thoughts on him entering the Hall of Fame?
I mean, when I started watching him, he was already a heavyweight, but we all know that he started just like Roy Jones. He started at like middleweight. I know he was like saying "Burger King, here I come." He was really sacrificing himself to make the weight. I think he was blowing up big time. But if you go back and look at his record, man, the dude's got like over 90 fights, or something crazy like that. And he's got about a couple losses, but never been knocked out. So, it's crazy. I mean, he could have probably fought Klitschko, and I wonder what would have happened there. But, I think there's some rumors circulating somewhere that he put out that they had sparred or something. But, sparring is sparring. But anyway, so many great stories with James Toney, man. Love the guy.
I completely missed his career, but I've gone back and watched a number of his fights. Excellent style, man. In his prime, oh my gosh. Like, I have no problem saying that he beats Canelo, although it depends on the night. He wasn't always on 100%. So I'd say for every 10 fights that they'd have, like maybe Canelo could eke a couple out depending on the night, right? But if you're talking prime for prime, man, what an incredible skill set. James Toney has just superior head movement himself. Like, man, I watched James Toney versus Iran Barkley run PMC, said, hey, go back and watch that one. If you want to see his skill set on display, check that one out. And Larry Merchant was looking for the word, but the word is rhythm. Like that's what this guy had, man. The way he could just tell when the punches were coming, very much like Canelo. But not only does he have a good head movement, man, like the guy's just got quick hand speed, power, combinations, fluidity, offsetting jab, can go on the front foot, go on the back foot. Like, man, I really appreciate his style. Like, I go back and I'm thoroughly entertained when I watch his fights. I'm like, man, like I can't believe that I missed this dude. It makes me sad that I didn't get into boxing a little bit earlier. I didn't even watch the downfall of James Toney. Like I've only gone back and watched a handful of his good fights. I saw his fight against Roy Jones. That was a good one because when I watched it, I'll be honest, I didn't know like who was going to win that fight. Like I didn't know the outcome. So I think it was two undefeated fighters. That's a damn good fight to just watch without knowing who wins. So entertaining. Yeah, man, James Toney, definitely the man. If you haven't seen his style, go take a look. I think he wrecks any middleweight and super middleweight.
Oh, yeah.
Let's end it with Floyd Money Mayweather has entered the Hall of Fame. What do you think, George?
Great career. I mean, TBE, I mean, I wouldn't say the best ever. I definitely would say one of the best. And I think I have this argument with my uncle all the time. He might be watching this or not, but if he isn't, I'm going to go ahead and talk shit. I'm kidding. No, I'm not going to talk shit. My uncle probably fuck me up. But no, hey, man. I guess when I think of Mayweather, I always think where I would put him on that list. We could go back and say, oh, well, the greats lost because they challenged themselves. And not that Mayweather didn't challenge himself. When he was Pretty Boy, I feel like that was the best Floyd that anybody. I think most of everybody agree that was like the best Floyd was when he was Pretty Boy. He was dominating. He wasn't afraid to get hit, or he didn't really get hit because he was just that dominating. He was actually fighting some guys in their primes. But I feel like he could be like top 20, maybe 15 of all time. I mean, I could think of some guys that I would put it over him. And it just started in the 80s, the four kings. I would put any of those guys over him. I was thinking about this too, prime for prime, out of him and Sugar Ray Leonard. I think Sugar Ray would have got him. I feel like he would have gotten him. Or even when I thought about out of the four, I think the only ones out of the four I think that Mayweather probably would have been maybe Duran. I just feel like the other guys would have been crazy. But back to his career, I think he had a good career. Yeah, he fought the names he fought, Canelo, but we could always go back and say, okay, well, Canelo wasn't in his prime. He fought Mosley. Mosley wasn't in his prime. We can go back and say he fought Cotto. He wasn't in his prime. He fought De La Hoya. Wasn't in his prime. And people couldn't even say that De La Hoya beat Mayweather. And I was one of the many that thought De La Hoya did enough to beat him, even though he said it wasn't the night of his for the jab, which was stupid. But I mean, I think I still respect him. I still feel like he had a good career. But I definitely wouldn't say he was the best of all time. I mean, that's all I could really say. I mean, I guess it is what it is. I have nothing else important to really say about Mayweather. I mean, I am a little disappointed because I wish we would have saw some of those prime guys. One, I will say he did avoid Margarito, and this was the Margarito before he got caught cheating. There's even, if you go back to YouTube, there's a video where Margarito, I don't know where they're at. They might be like at a club or a restaurant. He goes up to him and he's talking in English. He's like, am I next? Let's fight. And he's like, oh yeah, no, yeah, you're next. And he was stuttering his words. Like, oh yeah, you're next. Just the next fight, just beat this guy. Never happened. But people go back and say, well, Margarito was cheating. Yeah, maybe he was cheating, but there were some killers at the time at 147 and 140 that didn't get their chances against Mayweather. But overall, he retired. I'm not gonna say 51. I'll give him the 50. But I mean, great career.
Right, and he left when the block was hot, man. He retired at a time when Paul Williams was around too. Like he retired pretty conveniently, lost the love of boxing. And I don't want to start on a negative note, but George, he had such poignant things to say about these other fighters. And with Mayweather, I'm glad you're speaking from the heart. You know what I'm saying? But he gave me a lot of nights of entertainment. Like, this was when I was living in California. He took over those May and September dates. And so yeah, dude, for some reason he was able to kind of generate that attention for those fight parties. So even though sometimes later on in his career, you could say that maybe he wasn't the most entertaining fighter, he still brought the crowd. He was very polarizing. Either you wanted to see him win or you wanted to see him get his ass beat. Very interesting style. Like a lot of people would always say, well, hey, don't try to rush Mayweather because you'll play into his skill set. I'm like, well, you can't really outbox Mayweather. So I mean, he had a really excellent skill set. Very smart himself, very intelligent fighter. I enjoyed seeing his career. Like when I started watching boxing again, it was kind of around Mayweather versus De La Hoya. I hadn't even really seen Mayweather because I was in college at the time. And then I remember seeing the Hatton fight, and then he kind of retired. And then I got fully back into boxing. So I saw his run after that. Came back out of nowhere, fought Marquez, like we were mentioning, saying, well, hey, he called me out, and that's when Pacquiao versus Marquez, or excuse me, Mayweather versus Pacquiao was a hot topic. As soon as Pacquiao beat Hatton, that's when we all wanted the Mayweather versus Pacquiao fight. But, it took a while for that fight to happen. It didn't happen when we would have wanted it. I'm not saying he strategically waited out Pacquiao, but I mean, I think that if they're both older, Mayweather benefits. But still, he's got a lot of wins. I think his fight against Cotto was excellent. He outclassed Canelo. He's got a lot of skills. I think that he did lose to Maidana. And I'm not here to for some reason, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit of I don't want to call you like a hater, George, but yeah, all of a sudden I want to start saying negative things too. Although you know what, his acceptance speech left a bad taste in my mouth. Like I understand that he's trying to reconcile his relationship with his dad, but like he didn't even really mention Roger at all, even though
I
he
heard
mentioned
that.
like his baby mama. He mentioned everybody, but it's like, for some reason he couldn't even give a shout out to who he started with, Roger Mayweather, who he stuck with until Roger Mayweather pretty much kind of lost his faculties, and you could see that happen in the Cotto fight, I think. And then he ended up going with his dad again. Right. So I don't know. It would have been nice to at least shout him out. Like if his dad did show him everything, it's very possible that he did show him everything and he learned everything from his dad. He probably did, but man, like I thought it was a little bit disrespectful, although I felt like otherwise his speech was pretty humble. Like, he gave a shout out to all the boxers, and I've never seen him speak so selflessly. So he does love the sport. But I guess that's part of Mayweather that, made him earn so much is that, he does have his haters too. But I also liked him in a way. I found myself rooting for him in certain fights. Like when he fought McGregor, I was like, all right, cool. Let's, I'm waiting to see Mayweather, show these UFC dudes who are delusional thinking that McGregor's going to win, show him what's up, So, like I said, he did give me a lot of nights of entertainment. And Pretty Boy Floyd, early Mayweather, very impressive. Very impressive. So that's all I got to say. Nopal, you got any thoughts, brother?
I'm gonna just keep it sweet. It's short and sweet, man. Business wise, his career is impeccable, bro. This guy, he never made a wrong move, and boxing wise, his when he was Pretty Boy Floyd, I mean, damn, I think the dude was unbeatable, and nothing lasts forever though. The smart thing about him is that he was able to figure out a way to get a little more longevity and keep making money, and he never took a fight that he knew he couldn't win. He always had favorable circumstances, and I mean, you can't fault somebody for thinking that way. He was able to do it, and other fighters weren't smart enough to do it. So why are you just going to be bitter about that? So, like I said, I mean, business wise, impeccable. Impeccable the things he was able to accomplish and all the money and all that. Man, can't say nothing bad about that.
Oh yeah, like his timing for his fights was just perfect. The only time I remember getting a fight that I wanted from him, like at the time, I think was the Mosley fight because Mosley had beaten Margarito, and then Mosley got in the ring after Mayweather's fight and called him out. So like, but Mosley was pretty old by that point. People wanted that fight at 135. People wanted the Cotto fight at 147. People wanted the Pacquiao fight earlier. But like I said, he's just very well stressed. Sorry, go ahead. No, Paul.
And Chicano, even with the fights that were like trash, we were complaining about him at the beginning, but somehow we were drawn into the drama and all that crap. So clearly, it's like, man, you got to give the guy credit for having whatever team they had behind them and making something out of nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Fights
absolutely.
that were just straight up trash, bro.
Yeah, I will say this though. I think he is probably like business wise. He's kind of making some of these. So like two sides to it, right? He kind of put this thing with the newer generation where they feel like they're that they're obligated to everything, that they should get the best fight or they should get the most money, that their O should matter. And I feel like that little thing lasted not too long. Like now you're seeing, guys like Shakur, Haney, other fighters that are not afraid to go out there, face the best guys and aren't too worried about keeping that O. And they realize and they know that will happen. So I feel like that was kind of a plus, kind of that. And then everybody calls it too the Mayweather era, the generation after him where these guys just wanted to keep their O. But I will say he definitely was probably the best business savvy fighter.
That's a great point. Like, he did generate a lot of money for the sport of boxing, but the way he didn't leave boxing in a good state. He didn't do the sport of boxing any favors after he left, so you're right. He laid out a blueprint that was not beneficial. And we're still feeling that, like when Canelo pulls 750,000 buys, like we think that's a big success now. Like the numbers since the Mayweather era aren't there. And it's not because there are no stars. Like, I just think that the fighters these days are different. And it's a shame, you know what I mean? So, I mean, hopefully, like you said, this younger generation, I mean, they're unifying early, so, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I do have hope for this new era. Wow, man, like, we must be some bitter Mexicans. Floyd comes up, man, and we just start shitting on him.
No, man, and the thing, we're not the only ones that feel that way. It's, you can even ask, the boxing historian, like, he's not a big fan of Mayweather either. Like,
right. I'm just being funny, but you're right. No, and that's, we'll just leave it there, man. Congratulations to Floyd Mayweather. Well, hey, dude, I want to thank everybody for joining us, man. It was a real pleasure. For George with Off the Ropes Boxing and MMA and the heartbeat of the HCP network, No Paul Boxanos. This is Chicano. We're out. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.